Hey everybody, it's Romania Black. I'm so glad this isn't the end. I really am, because a couple weeks ago I was so worried that we were going to get to the end of episode 12 of Bungo Stray Dogs, and I was like, I don't know if there'll be a season 4. And so I'm like, it may be the last time we really spin with these characters. And this whole season has felt like a transitional season. If you ever watch those shows where there's a transitional season, I think of Game of Thrones is probably my most recent example that I've watched, but there's probably more recent examples than that. But there's like a season in Game of Thrones, I think it's season 5, and it like sets up things for season 6 and season 7. But when you're watching season 5, you're like, this doesn't feel like the end of something. It feels like it's leading to something else. Like it's just building upon something and laying the groundwork for things to come. And that's how this season has felt. Season 1 felt like a solid introduction season to the whole show. Season 2 was like getting into the characters, getting into the guild. I love season 2 as a whole. It's like structurally from end to end really well, and the Dark Age arc is perfect in it. And there are some episodes of this season that I've really, really loved, but it's never felt like as cohesive as season 2. And so I feel like this is a stepping stone season. Like it's building up to season 4. And I love that. It has me excited for season 4, but I'm glad this isn't the end. I'm glad there's a season 4, that it's going to be hopefully next year, probably by the summer, and we've just got to take a couple months off. That's fine. I can do that. I'm still waiting on like Yuri on Ice, the movie, for like 6 years later. So, I can wait a few months. So this is the season finale of season 3 of Bungo Stray Dogs. And then the next 4 weeks, I'm going to be watching Bungo Stray Dogs 1, which is the Chibi series. I'm really excited about it. And then I'm going to be taking a little hiatus. We're going to watch another show in the meantime. It's fine. Just taking a little interim break. And then come back as soon as season 4 hits. And I'm going to be so ready. And I think right before season 4, I'll be doing a big recap video to do like a bunch of recap things, like talk about the manga, talk about the light novels, talk about character songs, tier rankings, lots of things. I'm going to save all that up, and it'll be like a big old bash before we start season 4. I'm excited. So yeah, that's all leading up to it. But yeah, we're on episode 12, and I can't believe it's the season finale. We just found out Octagawa has the virus in him. That's not good. We don't know who else has the other end of the virus. We don't know how that works. But whoever's on the other end of the virus, he has to kill them, or they have to kill him for it to cure itself, or they need to kill Pushkin. So, and we still need to kill Pushkin because Mori and Fukuzawa are being affected as well. And Natsumi-sensei has reared his stubborn head. But I don't know what Natsumi's going to be able to do with all this. Dazai's back in action and has information, so I'm hoping Dazai can do something too, but we have 23 minutes to solve all these problems, and I don't think they're going to get solved in 23 minutes. I think we're going to have stuff left over that's going to carry over into season 4, so thank goodness. Everybody was excited when season 4 was announced, and if this ends on a cliffhanger, I'm going to see why. Yep, but I don't know. Stranger things have happened. This show has done a 180 in one episode and did so much before. So who knows? We'll see what happens. I did decide, I wore this shirt to work today and I was like, oh, it's black and white. It's like Octagawa and Atsushi together. It has very Rashomon-like sleeves. And I'm like, I feel like Rashomon. I feel like Octagawa. Octagawa would wear this shirt. If it was a little more manly, he'd wear it. Or he'd just wear it like it is. But it felt very Octagawa and Atsushi. So I'm like, I'm going to keep the black and white theme going. But before we start, this is going to be a long intro because I do have 2 characters to talk about, Pushkin and Natsumi Sosakai. And I will go ahead and say, first and foremost, because we don't know a lot about these characters yet, I just skimmed the surface of research. I didn't delve too deep. Because some of you got on to me about Mori. You're like, oh, they're like, oh, good, you didn't delve too deep because there's stuff that's going to be season 4 spoilers. And I was like, oh, good, I'm glad I didn't delve too deep into Mori. So just to be safe and cautious, I didn't delve too deep into Pushkin and Sosakai. I just did the bare minimum research to tell y'all, because there are some interesting things I wanted to point out. Just because it's the season finale, and I'm not going to research Fjordor yet. I'm going to wait on Fjordor till season 4, probably. But let's talk about old Sosakai. Natsume Sosakai lived to be 49, so not crazy old. Again, he's another writer, another author of Japanese literature that was obsessed with British literature. So a lot of our characters in this series were authors that were obsessed with Western culture, which I find interesting. But he liked to write haiku and kanshi and fairy tales, which is seems appropriate. And he's on the 1,000 yen note in Japan. So I didn't delve too deep into his ability. Obviously, his ability is based off of the story I Am a Cat, in which it's based off of the real-life Natsumi Sosakai story, satirical novel I Am a Cat. Set in the Meiji period, the story is told from the perspective of an anthropomorphized cat, a pompous pet cat of a middle-class man and his family. Natsumi's pretty stubborn and pompous, I'll say that. He kind of just does his own thing, very much like a cat. The cat also narrates the interactions of its owner and other characters, including the man's irritating friend and a young scholar who courts the spoiled daughter of a businessman. So that's interesting. But what I find really funny is that whenever Natsumi adopted his pen name Sosakai, it's derived from a Chinese idiom that means stubborn. I like that because it kind of ties to him being a cat, right? Cats are stubborn. They just do whatever they want on their own terms. They don't care what you think. Cats are their own being. But I also like that Natsumi's actual real life iteration has been adapted into other series, like The Great Ace Attorney has been adapted into a character in that series as well. So that was pretty cool. Like I said, I didn't research too hard into his character, but I liked the tie. There is one thing that I did want to note. Major themes in Sosakai's work include ordinary people fighting against economic hardship, the conflict between duty and desire, a traditional Japanese theme, loyalty and group mentality versus freedom and individuality, personal isolation and estrangement, the rapid industrialization of Japan and its social consequences, contempt of Japan's aging Western culture, aping waste of Western culture, and a pessimistic view of human nature. So interesting, because if you think about it, loyalty and group mentality, that's the Port Mafia. The Port Mafia is all about loyalty and group mentality. Mori leads the group and everybody follows along and are super loyal to Mori or whoever the leader is at the time. So there's that versus individuality and freedom, which is kind of the agency. The agency is all about everyone's individual talents. There's not really a leader or a hierarchy. The president's in charge, but it's kind of a flimsy structure, right? So you have freedom and individuality versus group mentality and loyalty. So the Port Mafia versus the ADA. Interesting. But also it's noted that in his final years, authors such as Akutagawa Ryunosuke and Kume Masao became close followers of his literary styles as his disciples. So the idea that Akutagawa is a disciple of Natsumi, interesting, because so far in this anime, Natsumi and Akutagawa have not interacted. But I wonder if that's going to happen in the season finale. I don't know. But I thought that was really interesting. I'm like, ooh, okay. All right, he's like by name mentioned. So I think that's really interesting. And maybe that's going to tie to season 4. Don't spoil me. I just thought that was interesting to note. So there's that. And then as far as Pushkin goes, of course, Pushkin is a Russian poet because it ties in with Fyodor, right? Alexander Pushkin is his name. And he only lived to be 37. That's not much older than me. That's really not. So that's terrifying. But here's the thing. He died in a duel. Pushkin, a poet, died actually in a duel with another man. So, and he's descended from a pretty noble bloodline. Like, he has some really, really noble bloodline. Lots of family members were part of Russian nobility. He was well educated, things like that. But then he got into debt. It was rumored that his wife was having a love affair and that he sent a challenge to a duel. He sent a challenge to a duel to Georgius T. Anthus, known as Dantes Gherkin, and asked that the duel take place. And 2 of his poet friends eventually tried to cancel the duel at first, but then it happened again. And so he had this duel, he was shot, and then he died from complications with his wounds. So I find that interesting because Pushkin's whole thing is that you fight to the death and one person has to die for the other person to live. So it connects to the idea that he died in a duel. Interesting indeed. And then his power is A Feast in Time of Plague, an 1830 play about a banquet being held in the midst of a plague ravaging their city. So yeah, interesting. I feel like the power is based more on the actual Pushkin's death than it is the play itself. But that is interesting. So yeah, Fun times, right? Fun times indeed. So yeah, that's Pushkin and Natsumi. I didn't delve too deep into their characters because again, I have a feeling we're probably gonna learn something about Pushkin maybe in this episode, and then Natsumi we've only begun to know his character, so I didn't want to delve too deep, but I wanted to talk about them because it was a season finale. So yeah, so this episode is not titled Cannibalism Part 4. No, it's called Echo. Echo. I don't know what to do with that. But yeah, it's the season finale, y'all, of season 3. I'm bittersweet because on the one end, I'm sad we have to wait several months for season 4, but on the other end, I'm elated that we actually even get a season 4. So it could have been a lot worse. If this had been the last episode and then we just had one after that, and it was going to be like an indefinite hiatus, I was going to feel really sad. But ever since finding out about season 4, I felt really happy. I'm like, okay, not the end, not yet. So let's dive in, shall we? We're going to start episode 37, or episode 12 of season 3. And we're going to start that here in 3, 2, 1, and let's go. That season finale. Oh man. Here's the thing about this show, okay? Here's the thing about this show. I loved the Akutagawa and Atsushi battle. When this show wants to do the stereotypical, I know it's a shonen I know it's a seinen, I know it's not a typical, I know shonen's not the appropriate genre, but the fight scenes in this show are very shonen-esque, especially when it's like Akutagawa and Atsushi working together, because their powers are very literal. They're very just pragmatic. I'm going to use this coat to attack you. I'm a tiger. It's very, it's not like a psychological ability, right? Their abilities are pretty straightforward. And so when they have fight scenes like with Ivan, it's very shonen-esque battle. And those are fine. That was fun. The rainbow at the end, I'm like, of course, But what I love about this show the most is that when it gets into that mystery angle and that thriller aspect of it, that's what I love the most. So when Dazai shows up there at the end and it just completely takes Fyodor by surprise, I live for that. I'm like, oh hell yes, that's exactly what I wanted to see. That was amazing. That's the best part. And then Fitzgerald, I knew at some point Fitzgerald was going to show up. It was like, mwah, chef's kiss. I loved it so much. It was great. This was a good season finale. I wondered what all they were going to... They managed to fit everything in. I was like, okay. The Ivan guy had a very run-of-the-mill villain feeling to him. He didn't feel like... It was just like, we need someone to fight Akutagawa and Atsushi in this moment. It can't be Pushkin, because Pushkin's ability is like the polar opposite of Atsushi and Akutagawa's. Pushkin's ability is like that ability. It's not really a melee one. It's just it's more... I'm trying to find the words to describe it, but it's not like a melee ability. It's more like a magical or a virus or something medicinal. It's not something that you can just fight somebody with, right? They needed a more grounded villain, so to speak, and that's what Ivan was. So but that whole thing with Fyodor at the end and getting Ango involved, and they can't touch him. They just can't touch him. Fyodor will kill them if they touch him. That's terrifying. And the fact that Fyodor just let them take him. Something's amiss. And I feel like Dazai at the end there, we'll talk about this, but I feel like Dazai at the end was recognizing that something was up and that this wasn't the end. Just because they got Fyodor in their custody doesn't mean anything, right? Something is amok, because we don't know what ended up happening with Hawthorne. Did Hawthorne get away, or did he get captured by Akutagawa? We know that this isn't... They at the House of the Dead Rats, it can't just be Hawthorne, Ivan, and Fyodor and this Pushkin guy. There's got to be other members, right? It's like the damn guild. There are other members, and just because Fyodor is captured doesn't mean that it's over, right? And I think Dazai was really realizing that at the end. But yeah, so let's talk about this episode. So the virus symptoms begin. Yeah, okay. And then we automatically get the clock. Sure. The clock winding down the time. And then Bungo Stray Dogs. Okay. Just up the ante a little bit. The whole aspect that Fyodor was never in the cart, that was really cool. And kudos to the anime, because going back, I don't think that he was ever in the same shot with any of these other characters. And then so he was with Ivan. We thought he was with this Ivan character, but they were in two separate locations. They just were made to look the same, right? So if somebody was doing surveillance, I guess they would think they're in the same location. But then when that waiter showed up, I was like, well, Ivan's gone. Who's he brainwashed now? But he was never there. I was like, oh, show. See, that's the stuff I like. When Bungo Stray Dogs does like that kind of psychological manipulation and you're like, oh, wait, what? That's the part of this show that I like. Like, the action's fun and I like all the abilities in action. That's great. And when Chuya is probably my favorite, like, melee fighter because his ability is just so freaking cool. But I like the psychological angle, like the Dazai stuff and Fjordor. Like, I like the game of chess a little bit more. Like, that's what I like about Bungo Stray Dogs is the chess game between these characters. Yeah, so apparently Pushkin knows Ivan, but this Ivan guy, he says that his ability to feel grief has been removed. That's creepy. The idea of an emotion being removed. I don't like that. And so then, and here was the thing. He says, what's the boss's next orders? And you cut to Fjordor, and Fjordor has the thing in his ear, like the earbud listening. So that's how he can relay the orders through the earbud that you don't ever see. And then Ivan instructs based on the music. That's how he communicates, is through the music. So interesting, like using the classical songs as a code. That's pretty good. That's pretty interesting. And so Ivan says he's just there. And so when Ivan says he has no intention to protect anyone but the master, then you're like, okay, well, he's with the master. But he's not. He's not. And then the whole thing with like him carving off his face and peeling the skin off his face is just creepy. And it shows just like what a possession Fjordor has on his men. Just, and even Pushkin's like, well, that's disturbing. So Akutagawa and Atsushi, our boys, and they don't tell Dazai that Akutagawa is infected, which I think is a good thing. They don't tell him he's infected. They just go about the mission. And then Atsushi getting infected too. For a second, I was like, I thought that it was going to pit Atsushi and Akutagawa against each other to have them try to kill each other. But instead, they both kind of do. It's funny because they do the exact opposite of what Mori and Fukuzawa do. Fukuzawa and Mori, their solution was, let's just fight each other and we'll just duel to the death and somebody has to win. That was their solution. Akutagawa and Atsushi, they don't even consider that. Their goal is to get the user, the ability user. So they work together for this. So I thought that was an interesting parallel. That Akutagawa and Atsushi worked together when Mori and Fukuzawa fought each other. But then Mori and Fukuzawa have kind of bigger stakes in terms of they're not near Pushkin and they're both the leaders of their respective organizations. So we didn't see Natsumi with Akutagawa in this, but I'm telling you, we're going to tie back to that at the very end of this with what Atsushi makes Akutagawa promise. We're going to tie back to that because I want to talk about him and Natsumi by the end of this. And then Atsushi, when he looks back to Akutagawa, when Dazai's like, don't get infected. And Atsushi's like, well, shit, too late. He got grazed by the bullet. Don't let the gifted out of your sight and we'll take care of Fjordor. And so Akutagawa's like, well, damn it. What we got to do. And so then, yeah, the mine cart gets stopped. But then Atsushi just becomes part tiger, and the idea of Akutagawa riding on his back is amazing. I always want Atsushi to turn into a full-blown tiger. Like, I just want him to become a tiger. Like, just become a full-blown tiger. Like, just become completely tiger-fied, but that's not going to happen, I don't feel. And I like, of course, the tiger and the dog. So you have the cat and the dog comparisons with Atsushi and Akutagawa. But at the end, by the end of this, Atsushi's not called a were-tiger, he's called a wandering dog and a wretched dog. They're both like, Akutagawa kind of equates each other to being similar. So yeah, this is great. I really love this, where he's just like, he's ordering Atsushi around. I love that he's just like tugging on his suspenders to like move him. That's great. And just saying, run, fool. He doesn't call Atsushi by his name. He always calls him were-tiger. I'm telling y'all, I'm waiting for the moment when Akutagawa calls Atsushi by his actual name. I'm waiting for it, because he's only ever called him were-tiger. I'm waiting for it, or fool. I'm waiting for him to call him by his name. And then, yeah, we get Ivan, who can control Earth. Of course, Fyodor would want somebody that can control an element like that. That's very handy, right? So I'm curious. We have someone else to research for season 4. We have someone to research for season 4. We have Ivan G. The Precipice. He kind of has a Lovecraft vibe to him in a weird way. I like Lovecraft more because Lovecraft is literally a monster and he's literally ethereal and kind of beyond humanity. And Ivan's just kind of like a vaudevillain version of Lovecraft. Okay, so I'm at the point with the helicopters. Tanizaki saying the idea of all the different distractions and Dazai just saying, ignore them. That was so funny because Tanazaki's like, I want to do something. Should I move my helicopter over here and do this? And Tazai's like, ignore them. And it's like it reminded me, it called back to episode 1 in season 1 where Atsushi was like, I'm going to rob the next thing that comes by. And it's like a military troop. And he's like, not that. And it's like a motorcycle. Not that. And then he finally gets to Dazai. And so it felt like a callback to that where Tanazaki's like, there's all these armored vehicles. Nope, ignore them. There's someone in a hood with armed guards around them. Nope, ignore them. Another distraction. And then finally they think it's the hiker. And it's not the hiker. The hiker's also a distraction. So I like that even when Dazai seems confident that he's like, well, that's what I would do. Even though when Dazai's like, that's what I would do, I'm confident. It's not quite enough because Fyodor is not just like Dazai. He's kind of on a different wavelength. They're similar characters. But as Dazai even noted back in episode 7 or 8? It was like, they're not the same. And I like that by the end of this, Dazai has to incorporate the help of Fitzgerald in order to finally catch him. Because it's like, use my enemy to help. But we'll get to Fitzgerald. Oh God, the last 5 minutes of this were amazing. I loved it so much. So yeah, we've got our stereotypical battle, our action-filled battle with this golem, and this guy with the stone and everything. And so I was really kind of sad that Akutagawa got crushed, that Atsushi got crushed at first. I thought Akutagawa was going to save him and he just lets him get crushed. It's like, ooh. And of course, they're like bantering like a married couple at this point, where Akutagawa just shows up and they're like, are you thinking what I'm thinking? It's like, yeah, we're going to do this. How many times have we tried to kill each other? We know each other's ability. Stay put, sickly man. Keep running, fool. And I like that contrast. He's like, stay running, you sickly man. And he's like, stay still, sickly man. You keep running. So it's like one stays still and one keeps running. I like it. I like the polar opposites, right? And Atsushi at the end when he tells Dazai, he's like, we're incompatible. And I was like, you're actually the opposite of that. You guys are so compatible to the point where it's not even funny, but it is. So yeah, I like that Akutagawa and them, they do their best. They try, and it ended up being a dummy on the ground. Tough love. And so let's go after. He says, "Be my horse! Be my horse, Were Tiger!" Of course, Atsushi's like, working with him is awful. All he does is be mean to me. It's like, Akutagawa's yandere, dude. You have to understand. Akutagawa is like on that tsundere yandere borderline where he really likes you. He just doesn't want to express it, you know? And then, yeah, because at the end of the day, he is concerned. He is concerned. He doesn't just run off without him. He is concerned for him. And then, yeah, they get stuck. And then, of course, Akutagawa gets injured. The virus activates. It was from his power. I like the contrast of G. Willikers. Mori's virus was red. Akutagawa's virus was red. Atsushi's virus is blue. Fukuzawa's is blue. Could you be any more obvious? The thing is, and this is something to consider, Dazai and Chuya were both in the Port Mafia. I guess Dazai's would be blue and Chuya's would be red. But I would also think that Dazai's would be red too. So, I don't know. My master brings joy to this godless world. I've been saying, I'm like, your master just kills people. Yeah, evil's the one who stands in his way. Yeah, okay. Fyodor he has such a god complex, which is funny because they say it's a godless world. And it's like, okay, so he's going to be the deity to bring about justice, you know? And I like these helicopters Chanazaki's just flying around using up gas at this point with the helicopter. Oh, man. And so, yeah, then we get the quicksand. And I like Akutagawa. He's like, I'm not going to let you use Rashomon until you answer my question. Why do you fight? And so I like that it's kind of like Akutagawa trying to reason why Atsushi is still fighting, because who does he have to get revenge upon? He says your headmaster's dead. He's like, so why are you fighting still? It's like your headmaster spurned you into action, but he's no longer here. So what's the point for you? And I like that when Atsushi says he's right behind you, and Atsushi's like, and Akutagawa's like, wait, what? And Atsushi's like, nah, I always see him. He's always there. He's not dead. He's with me all the time. And I like that Akutagawa gets kind of freaked out for a second. But it's like, no, he lives in my head now. And he says that he keeps repeating the cursed words, do what is right. The cursed words. I can't get revenge against someone who's dead. But it's what's driving him. It's like your existence is tied to being able to help others, right? What's your purpose in life? What's the point of being there if it's not to help others? And then Akutagawa says it's far more brutal than my trivial death. Which I guess he's assuming that Atsushi has a much more noble purpose and reason than Akutagawa does. Yeah. So then he gives him the demonic armor. He gives him Rashomon. If I'm a wretched dog, you're a wandering dog. Making them both dogs. This is the solution. And it all ties back to what Dazai said. Fight and give me an answer. And then Akutagawa says, if you lose like this, then I'll never forgive you. Yeah. So Dazai said back at the beginning back at the end of season 2, he talked about how Rashomon and Akutagawa were more of a support character. They were more of a supporting character. They weren't really the ones meant to deal the crushing blow. They're meant to aid others. And so it all ties back to this, where Atsushi gets to wear Rashomon himself. And Atsushi pulls off the black coat. He does. I like that it wraps around his tiger claws too. It's really cool. It looks very Bleach-esque. If you've ever read Bleach, it has a very Bleach-esque vibe with the black coat around Atsushi. But I like it. And it kind of combines his abilities. Like, he can use Rashomon, and it ties to his ability as a were-tiger. Tiger claws can cut through the very fabric of an ability. Yeah, and we've seen that throughout the series. So Akutagawa is not stupid. He realizes that is a possibility. So he's like, if I just use Rashomon to expand that capability, Rashomon can encloak his body as a tiger in tiger form, and then he can use that cutting ability to cut through an ability and extend it into Rashomon, and it just like gets bigger. It's more versatile. I like it. Of course, you know, there's like a rainbow-esque quality to Atsushi's coloring here. Like I like that in Rashomon he glows blue instead of glowing red like Akutagawa. And then when they both stand next to each other, he's like, let's do this. Akutagawa says, obliterate him, were-tiger. And then they did the ability being called Beast Beneath the Moonlight Rashomon. And just putting the red and blue together. Kokuto Zesu. Zesu? Yeah, I love it. And it looks like just Wolverine claws coming out. And they just turn into a friggin' Beyblade. They just turn into a spinning top of blue and red, and it just becomes a rainbow. And then, lo and behold, the theme of Akutagawa and Atsushi, Shin Sokoku, is the rainbow above. Show you're not subtle. Not at all. I love it. I love it so much. So then, yeah, Pushkin, I'm like, dude, you're an idiot. He thinks he's getting out. He's like, oh, the weaklings always get away. It's like, no, there's the entire agency and Port Mafia waiting on you. Yeah, and I like that at first Mori and Fukazawa are like, yeah, we'll forgive you. No, we're going to kick your ass because you did this horrible stuff. Yeah, I love it. But yeah, everybody's there. And I just love how pleased Mori looks. He just has his little devilish smile, and he's so pleased standing next to Fukuzawa. It's like, aw. Fyodor, Master of Phantoms. Yeah, and I love Motoshiro has the lemon bomb. You see Gin. You see I always forget the one guy with the red spiky hair in the Port Mafia. I forget his name. You see Koyo, Kunikita in the lead, Yasano, Kyoka, Tanizaki, Kenji. Like, everybody's just standing. We were all put in mortal danger because of you. Oh my God, yes. And he's like, I'll disable the virus and turn myself in. Forgive me. And Mori's like, well, that's good enough. Yeah. Let's forgive him. I love it. And then they're like, obviously not. And I love that. Here's the thing. Again, the parallels. Mori and Fukuzawa punching Pushkin together is so reminiscent of when Akutagawa and Atsushi punched Fitzgerald together. It's a callback. It's the parallels. Oh, I love it. Show. You're shipping all of my characters, and I'm all about it. But then, yeah, and then the virus is gone. But the reveal that Fyodor has been in a different location this entire time was wonderful. I love it. It's so good. And then, yeah, the big giant clock piece in this cafe, like what a centerpiece there, that big giant clock face. Crazy, right? Yeah, crazy. And then, Ivan. There's no connections to the outside world, and they've been connected through the radio, through the musical waves, while Katai's been trying to hack everything. Interesting. And so then, yeah, the rat is already outside the hole, is what he tells Kunikita. So yeah, so Fyodor thinks he's gotten away scot-free. And he says, St. Matthew, Passion by Bach. I'd be curious to know if there's any comments down below, if there's any significance to St. Matthew Passion. That's interesting. That's his cue. My time's up. Time to go, basically. They weren't nearly as formidable as I thought. And you don't know if he's referring to Pushkin necessarily, or the agency in the Port Mafia. Could be both. I'll be able to end them in my next move. Yeah, and then I love this. When the classical music is still playing, and his like coat sweeps behind him, but then he stops. He stops and he's so nervous. And he looks over and there's frickin' Dazai with a damn cup of tea. And it's like, but that's not all. But that's not all, friends. No. Yeah, and he's like, what? It's like, wait, what? And Dazai's like, I've never seen you so shocked. And he has that murderous gleam in his eyes. Like Dazai has the Dark Age look. He's like, aren't you interested in knowing how I found you? Well. And then he looks over, and then I really played my best card. And when we just saw the hands, I thought it was Natsumi. I thought it was Natsumi had came, and that's how he found Fyodor. But no, Natsumi seems like he's very behind the scenes and only wants to be seen by Mori and Fukuzawa, because those are like his original little proteges. He doesn't want to be seen by anybody else. He gave Dazai the chip. That was enough. But he didn't want to be seen by Dazai other than his cat form. And then I thought, when I saw the top of the head, the one that caught the demon, when I saw the top of the head, I thought it was Kunikita. And I was like, oh, well, Kunikita's going to get his revenge on Fyodor killing the girl. That's what I thought then. But no, the one that caught the demon is Fitzgerald. Long time, rat. Oh, they got history too. And then Fyodor, like, smiling, saying, oh, excellent, the eyes of God. Like, it's like Fyodor's trying to figure out the puzzle too. And it's like, he got surprised by the move, but it's something he's like elated by the surprise, by the challenge that this is presented. It's something he didn't expect. And I love that, the eyes of God, which we set up back in episode 7. We set that back up, that Fitzgerald was having Eckelberg work on the eyes of God. It was all set up. It's great because so many things from this season, even though they were in standalone episodes, they all came back around to have a play in the Cannibalism Arc. And I was like, I knew Fitzgerald was going to be part of this somehow. I'm like, he has to have a role. And he did. And it's so good. Yes. So, that's right. The inescapable eyes that integrate surveillance images from all over the city. Yep, while you're distracted by your base. Yep, I love it. It's great. And so he agreed to help us on the condition that we'd take back the guild's hidden assets, which you've swiped. And I like Fitzgerald's line. He says, I have no interest in money once it's escaped me, but my pride wouldn't allow me to leave it in the hands of rats. Love it. Love it. I'm like, I want to see adventures of Fitzgerald and Dazai together. I want to see them on adventures, because now that they're working together, Dazai and Fitzgerald are kind of similar a little bit. We never really saw in season 2 Dazai and Fitzgerald working together or interacting with each other. We really didn't. It was mainly just Atsushi Nakagawa that dealt with Fitzgerald. I could totally see Dazai and Fitzgerald are a very deadly combination, because they're both such trolls and they're kind of divas, and I could see them either, you'd think they'd either hate each other or they get along tremendously. And in this scene, they kind of get along tremendously. So I'm like, I kind of want to see more of Dazai and Fitzgerald. I want a what if of them. And then, of course, Ango and the others show up, the special ops. And Ango's like, we'll take it from here. And Dazai's like, sure. I don't want to deal with him. But yeah, the guy goes to touch him, and they go to cuff him. And then Dazai realizes at that moment that that's not good. You don't want to do that. And Dazai's like, don't touch him. And then, yeah, he does. And he just kills him. And Dazai says he doesn't know what his ability is. His ability is he just touches you and kills you. That's literally his ability. Fitzgerald's like, he's dead. It's like, no shit, Sherlock, he's dead. And Ango's like, huh. Well, we'll shoot you if you try anything funny. And he repeats Dazai's words, sure. And I feel as if Dazai's like, I don't trust him being left in their custody. And I like that Fitzgerald calls Dazai detective. He's like, detective, do you know what his ability is? Dazai's like, no, I don't. Which is interesting. So I'm glad I didn't research him yet. Because I have a feeling in season 4 we're going to need to know more about him. So I thought this cruise liner, the ship at the end was Fitzgerald's ship. And maybe it's just one that they've loaned out to the agency. Fitzgerald's like, here's my Zelda luxury liner. Y'all can borrow it for the day since you helped me get my stuff back. But I love that there's this party. And I love that Tanizaki and Kenji and Kyoka think they're all in trouble because they went against the president's orders. And Tanazaki's like, we're going to get axed. We disobey the president's orders, fight against the port mafia. We're going to get axed. It's not good. And then Kenji, who has no clue what the word axed means, it's like, that sounds fun. And Kyoka's like, I've seen people axed on the job. And it's like, do you know what that means, Kyoka? But I love their little outfits. I love the tiny little bow tie that Kenji has with the sparkles. He's so excited. And Tanizaki has like the clips in his hair and the suit. Kyoka has the little bunny pin on her blouse. It's so adorable. Like, everybody looks so fashionable in this finale. I love it. And Tanazaki's tie has like the little polka dots. And then I love that Rampo's like, snacks. And then I was like, oh wait, Rampo got out. He got out of the book. I love that Rampo is just like only concerned that there is food. He's like, that's all I'm here for. And I love that he doesn't even have a coat jacket. He just has the vest and the tie. And then Kunakita has the green tie with that. I love that Yasano's outfit's probably my favorite. She has the pearls and the turtleneck, the blazer over it, and the red dress. Yasano is looking mighty good in this season finale. And they're like, you made it out of the mystery novel. He's like, well, sure. I identified all 500 criminals. But Fancy Hat Boy is still inside. So Chuya's still in the novel at the end of season 3. That seems like it'd be a problem. Like, you'd want Chuya to get out, because what if you need Chuya to fight against Fyodor? But I guess that Rampo is confident that he's going to get out. He just gave up on the mystery novel and started beating everyone up. I love that Chuyo's like, screw this Scooby-Doo shit, and just started like punching his way through everyone. I want to see that. I hope the manga shows us that. When I get to the manga, I hope it shows me that. That'd be great. And so then, yeah, Naomi's there. Naomi kind of looked like Geen a little bit in her outfit. The way her hair's done up and she's wearing like the light blue and white. It looked very much like Geen, oddly enough. And then we have the girl who is Natsumi's owner. The one girl, I always forget her name, but she's Naomi's friend. And Fukazawa in the traditional garb, you know. And then Fukazawa is like, I'm not going to punish y'all. Not right now. We'll deal with that later. For right now, we need to, you know, I'm grateful for you, so let's just deal with this. And I like that Rampo isn't even bowing. He's like, I have done nothing wrong. He's just sitting there eating food like, why are they bowing? I did what I was supposed to. Even though he was going to fight against the Port Mafia. And then Fukazawa's smiling. It's like, oh, did you rekindle your romance with your old buddy, Mori? Sure you did. He looks so much younger and softer in that moment, Fukazawa does. It's like, But then, yeah, this show, when it wants to do like a scene in a sunset, it really knows how to animate it well. It's like, Bones is like the animation studio behind sunsets like Kiwani is with water. It's so gorgeous. The color scheme and everything. And I like that in all 3 seasons, we've gotten Dazai in the sunset, but with like a different mood behind each one, right? So at the end of, when Atsushi first met Dazai, there was like a sunset and he like pushed the hair back and he's like, my name is Osamu Dazai. And then in season 2, they're on basically like the dock whenever he saves the city. He's like, you saved the city, your city. And then here, it's a little bit more melancholy. It's a little bit more melancholy of an ending. And so he has the champagne on the edge of the ship. And Dazai looking pretty good in that black suit. Dazai having the red striped, pinstripe tie with the black suit. Dazai pulls it off. Like, this show loves to animate Dazai and make him look as good as possible. And then I like that Atsushi has the white tie and the white shirt and the black suit, but his sleeves are like 3/4 length. He doesn't have the full length. Because it's funny, Atsushi never has full length sleeves. They're always 3/4 length because he's constantly transforming into a tiger and they're going to rip the sleeves anyway. So they're already taken up. It's a funny little touch. And so then Atsushi's saying, this is such a nice venue. And Dazai's like, yeah. And I forget how much shorter Atsushi is than Dazai. Like, Dazai's a lot taller than him. Interesting. And then there's this awkward silence. And Atsushi like looks over to him like, gonna say anything? And this silhouette, Dazai in the sunset looking forward, it's funny because on the one hand, Dazai is never there celebrating with any of them. Like, we established in season 2 that Dazai is always afraid that if he gets close to someone, he's gonna lose them. Like he lost Oda. And so he tries to keep himself at arm's length. So in season 2, when they had the big celebration, Dazai was off with Hirotsu. He wasn't anywhere near them. And in season 1, Dazai kind of like went off by himself. He didn't want to be around anybody celebrating during Atsushi's like entrance party. And then here, Dazai's out on the ship himself. And Atsushi kind of wiggles his way into his space, being like, hey, I'm here. And Dazai doesn't look pleased about it. He's very melancholy. And he's like looking off ahead, and you know that Dazai's probably thinking, what's Fyodor doing? What's his strategy? What's he planning next? Who's he going to target? And you can tell like there's, in that moment, Dazai's thinking ahead at all the different scenarios and everything going on. And Atsushi just isn't aware of that. It's so fascinating. Like that shot of Dazai in between the bridge, you can see the 2 towers of the bridge, and with the sun behind him, like I could stare at that for days. It's such a beautiful shot of him. It's so gorgeous. And then Atsushi's like, well, this is awkward. And he's just got his champagne. And that's when Dazai breaks the tension. And Atsushi's like, what? Yes. How is it working alongside Akutagawa-kun? And then awful. I love it. I love it. I never want to partner with him again. And Dazai's like, really? Why not? We're fundamentally incompatible. Lies. I love it. He's short-sighted. And then he says, in 6 months, I'll kill you. I'm like, you guys just worked together and proved that you're a great tag team. Akutagawa, why are you trying to kill him now? Stop. Be well prepared. When we first fought on the ship, way back in season 1, I despised you for how well off you are. And so that's different now. Yeah, he's realized that we're not so different, you and I. He's not so well off as you thought. Until I defeat you, I can't move on. It's like, well, but no. That's not it. Akutagawa, you tsundere. Thus, I will kill you. No, you won't. And I love that Dazai's like, so what'd you tell him about that? And I love this. I love this that Atsushi says, he's like, well, you should know. And Dazai's like, well, go on. I kind of guessed. But here's the thing. Atsushi's saying, you can come at me in 6 months and kill me, fine. But on one condition. Don't kill anyone for the next 6 months. There's something simple you'll learn from that. And I like that. I like it's Atsushi teaching him. He's like, there's something simple you're going to learn from not killing anybody in 6 months. And it'll be what it takes to win Dazai-san's approval. And the fact that weakness and strength aren't what they seem. And I love the paintings in the background behind them. Like the Impressionist watercolor paintings are gorgeous. And this is the big thing, that you're really ahead of me already. So that's been the thing since season 1. Akutagawa has always wondered why Atsushi has Dazai's approval, why he's seemingly thought of as being better than Akutagawa. And Atsushi's like, no, you don't get it. You're way ahead of me already. Like, I'm not better than you. And Dazai appreciates me because I don't just run out and kill people, because I'm considerate and I think of these things and have this heart. He's like, and if you have a heart too, Akutagawa, then you'll see what I'm talking about. Yeah. And I like that Akutagawa just narrows his eyes. Like, Baka, no. But he says very well. And then this is probably my favorite part of the whole episode, is this last part here where Atsushi, he says, I'll get stronger. I'll ask Kunikita to teach me how to fight. So I want to see that in season 4. I want to see Kunikita training Atsushi hand-to-hand combat. I want to see that. That would be awesome. I love it. And I'll train myself to control my ability better. It's like, yeah, it's like he's got to work in these next 6 months if Akutagawa's going to come after him. And I love that he like raises up and like gets taller in that moment so I can brush off Akutagawa's strength. I love that he like raises himself up and stands taller in that moment. And it's all an internal monologue to himself. And he says, that way I can be freed from the shackles of that man. And then Dazai's like, yeah, I figured you'd say something like that. And then the matchbook. Oda, a mafia member who doesn't kill, huh? I love it. This line, you and Akutagawa are both fighters. Just like us. Saying to him and Oda, him and Oda, So in that moment, it's kind of like Dazai is equating himself to Atsushi and equating Akutagawa, the assassin, to Oda, the assassin. It's kind of like I talked about in episode 11. Chuya and Oda have a weird dual relationship with Dazai in this series. Because if you're thinking of like pairings, you have, obviously, I think, honestly, the pairings with the most similarities to them, it's not Chuya and Dazai and Akutagawa and Atsushi. It's Akutagawa and Atsushi and Mori and Fukazawa. I think they're the two pairings that have the most similarities. Especially Mori and Akutagawa and Atsushi and Fukazawa. In terms of their morals and their ideals, I think they're the two that are the more similar. And then you have Dazai and Chuya, but you also have Dazai and Oda. So it's curious. And it's funny because Dazai, you could also look at it this way, that you have Dazai as being the one hand, and then if you pair them up, Oda is more like Atsushi, and Chuya is more like Akutagawa, which is funny because Chuya and Akutagawa kind of hang out together. But Atsushi and Oda kind of have similar moral compasses. And in the flashback of the Dark Age arc, Atsushi's voice actor played the younger Oda. So there's ties there. But in this moment, Dazai is relating himself to Atsushi and Oda to Chuya and Oda to Akutagawa. So many parallels between these characters. And I like that after all these years, Dazai keeps the bar Lupin matches to remind him of Oda. And when he clenches the fist around the matches, it's like when his hand was covered in blood from Oda's back and he clenched the fist. I think it was in the ED before too. And then he says, Atsushi-kun. And he does the toast. And their drinks are different. So Dazai's is like champagne or something. And maybe since Octogawa just had seltzer water. Who knows? He says, what are we toasting to? Roll credits. I love that shot of Dazai. To the stray dogs. Just like what Oda and them said in the bar Lupin. To the stray dogs. And then Atsushi's like, okay. Yeah. To the stray dogs. And it cuts right there. I love that callback to Bar Lupin. Instead of the whiskey, it's them with the champagne. Yep. I absolutely love it. Oh gosh. It's such a good season finale. Oh, it was great. It was great. I loved it. So yeah, as a whole with this season, there's a lot with this season I really like. I think that Fyodor is probably the most intimidating antagonist we've had so far in the series. I like Fitzgerald a lot, but Fitzgerald's a fun villain. Fitzgerald's like a fun, like classic campy villain, and I like that about him. Fyodor's like a serious, scary villain because he just gives off the creepy vibe. Fitzgerald doesn't give off a creepy vibe. Fitzgerald's fun. And a diva. And then obviously the Port Mafia, Mori is just great. I'm so glad they all lived. I'm so glad. I feel like this season finale ended on a good note. We still don't have the thing with the book being addressed. The book has been just dropped at this point. We're not even going to talk about it right now. They're saving it for season 4, I'm sure. The book, the idea of the promised land, that was brought up this season. It was brought up by Fitzgerald too. There's clearly some history between Fitzgerald and Fyodor. We don't know all the House of the Dead Rats. We don't know all of that. So there's a lot to look forward to a season 4. So I'm really curious because this was a season finale for sure. I would have to say at this point if I'm ranking seasons, season 2 is my favorite because it has Oda. And I don't know if y'all knew I have this mug, but I got this mug a while back. It's Oda because he's like my favorite character. I freaking love Oda. I got this sent in from Japan. It's Bungo Stray Dogs. When we do the recap video, I'm definitely gonna be drinking my coffee out of this because it's Oda and it's glorious and I love him. So I love me some Oda. So obviously I like season 2 because of the Dark Age arc, but then also I feel like season 2 was a more succinct arc, like from start to finish, like it all threaded together and none of it felt like none of this show has felt like filler, for the record, but I feel like every episode in season 2 connected with the other and it all built up to a climax and then had a resolution. And the ending of season 2, that season finale is probably my favorite. I love that season finale. It's so good. It could have been a series finale, but luckily it wasn't. I would say this season's my second favorite. Because of Fyodor, because of Fitzgerald. The standalone episodes were all good. The Cannibalism arc was really good. I loved the nervous anxiety that this show gave me, like in episodes 9 and episode 10. Really, really good. And then episodes 11 and 12 were nice payoffs. So I'd say season 2 is my favorite. Season 3 is my second favorite. And then season 1 is good, but it's all just setting up the characters that get explored in these next 2 seasons. So I'm excited for season 4 to see. I feel like a lot of this was set up for season 4. And I'm like, Octogawa, are you really going to go after Atsushi and try to kill him? No. But what I am also excited for is Bungo Stray Dogs 1. So like I talked in the last episode, we're going to have 4 parts to it. Starting next week, I'm going to do episodes 1 through 3 of Bungo Stray Dogs 1, which is the Chibi series. I'm excited. It's going to be adorable. A perfect Christmas gift, us to get Bungo Stray Dogs for Christmas. And then do episodes 4 through 6, 7 through 9, and 10, 11, and 12 to round out. And then we'll start the new year with a brand new show. And that show will hopefully lead us into Bungo Stray Dogs season 4. So that's pretty exciting, right? I'm excited. I hope y'all are too. But in any case, I'm curious to know your thoughts down below with this end of the season. This was great. I loved this. But I'm curious to know your thoughts about the season finale and what all you thought. So in the meantime, this is not the end. We still got Bungo Stray Dogs 1 and then we'll come back for season 4. But in the meantime, I hope you all have a wonderful week. Please stay safe. Take care. Thanks for listening to my ramblings. And I'll talk to y'all again next week with Bungo Stray Dogs 1. Bye.